Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we speak to small cap executives when they put out big press releases. And we have one today. Paul Gill, CEO of Lomiko Metals, trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol LMR. In the US for our friends on the OTCQB, LMRMF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under DHHC. And we've got big news out of the company. I'm going to read the headlines, so pardon me. Lomiko Metals and Quebec Precious Metals report multiple 100-meter intercepts and multiple 10% CG zones at Loutre flake at the Flake Graphite project. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, George. It's a great day.
Yeah, it sounds like a great day. That was a massive press release. We want to dig down deep into that to find out, what it really means for the company. But before we even get into that, given the interviews we've had to date and what you've been telling the market to date, how happy are you in general about what you've delivered with this latest result?
Yeah, as I said, George, I think we're 75% of the way there. So I guess you could count me as 75% happy at this point in time. So I want to get to a full PEA, which describes the full value of the project, and that'll be a fantastic day, and it's coming soon.
All right, the Loutre Flake Graphite property. It's 120 kilometers away from Montreal. It's about 50 kilometers away from the only graphite producing project in North America. You already had about 10 million tons of 6% just in the Graphene-Battery Zone. Now you put out these massive drill results from the refractory zone. What have you discovered about the refractory zone? What's got you excited about these results?
Yeah, this is exactly what we were looking for from the refractory zone. What we know is that the Imerys carbon graphite mine you mentioned just now operates at 5 million tons of described tonnage at 7.74%. So the graphene battery zone just didn't make the cut. It was 6% and 10 million tons, good size. Not quite there with grades. We need to be competitive with our neighbors around us and in Quebec. It's a competitive world out there. So we started drilling at the refractory zone with the idea of adding tonnage and adding grade. And so what we see now is a number of 10% plus flake graphite intercepts, and over several of them are 100 meters or more. And so we're really happy with that. We're going to add tonnage, we're going to add grade, and we're going to come out with a really good number for the buyers out there that are looking for these projects.
With what degree of confidence can you say that the refractory zone is continuous? At approximately 900 meters, how much more strike length is actually possible?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's more strike length. There may be a couple hundred meters on either side of it, primarily towards the southwest. What we're going to add next, if we get to proven and probable on this particular resource, is we're going to add a little bit more definition. We're going to add a number of different drill holes to the east, northeast, and north and southwest, so we can find out what the real thickness of that system is. And we should be doing that after a PEA is done and really getting good numbers for a proven and probable reserve. That's where our target is.
And to give people some sort of idea here, you're expecting the updated 43101 sometime before the end of the summer, and you're anticipating PEA about sometime in Q1 2020, about 6 months down the road?
Yeah, that's our targets right now. It all depends on financing. We're working hard to get the project financed now for the PEA. It's a two-step process. One, we're going to do the resource, which gives further definition and confidence to any investors that there is a significant value that's in operation here. And we've had great meetings in Quebec. We met with Investment Quebec. We met with SIDEX and a number of different institutions there. And they're all in on supporting projects like this that are going to add to the sort of the green economy. And Quebec has already mentioned that they're fully supporting that kind of field, and we're right in the middle of it. So it's good timing all around. And I think by January, when we produce, or January, February, when we produce that pre-economic assessment, we'll have a lot of people willing to take a look at us, and more than just kicking tires, maybe they'll write some checks.
Yeah, and for people who aren't familiar with what Paul was just referencing, the Premier of Quebec came out, I don't know, what was it, Paul, about 60 days ago, and said he wants to be fully green all public transportation by 2030, all electrically powered, and high-grade graphite, high-purity graphite is obviously going to play a big role in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Quebec is great for lithium and graphite projects. We have the raw materials there. We need investment to produce higher grade materials and actually a finished product. If we could get funding to get a lithium-ion battery factory there, that'd be fantastic. I just heard recently that across the world, I'm talking about demand, 91 mega factories are now being built. It went from 56 to 70, 71 to now 91. So we're going to see an incredible demand for the raw materials. There's not enough raw materials, lithium or graphite or cobalt out there right now to feed these factories.
And your target has always been supplying North American factories because you're located in a perfect location, like right outside Montreal. That means you can hit the U.S. Eastern Seaboard without any problem. Have the numbers increased on the U.S. side as far as number of these mega factories, gigafactories that are going up?
Yeah, I believe that there's a couple in New York, and obviously the big one Tesla has in Nevada is there. I think that there's another one added in California. So we're seeing areas in which North America is really ramping up. The big problem, however, continues to be that there is no graphite anode production, and that's what you need to make a lithium-ion battery. Not just lithium and nickel, which go into the cathode, but you need a graphite anode, and there's a whole process behind building that. We would love to fill that gap and produce that product for some of these mega factories.
Can you be competitive? I know we might be putting the cart before the horse, but there is going to be a supply crunch around the world for all these mega factories. Can you be competitive even shipping product overseas, or do you not even need to worry about that because North American demand on its own will be pretty strong?
Well, I think that that's a secondary market for us, is overseas, whether it's Europe or in other locations in China. There's a lot of mega factories being built in China. In fact, we're seeing the numbers dive when it comes to Chinese export of graphite materials. Raw graphite materials just don't get exported anymore. Now they're importing from Africa. So we see that trend is turning around. So I think we're going to be competitive, and that's the target, is to be competitive with Chinese factories and African production.
So on that note, do you think you have you're obviously going to need to drill more, Paul, is it safe to say, to prove up the project even further, but do you think you'll have enough to be able to supply the demand that you expect to see coming? Because that's obviously you need grade, and you're going to need tonnage at the end of the day. What are you guys hoping to achieve in terms of tonnage?
Well, our target is a 25 million ton deposit that grades 8% or more. I think that would be putting us right in the area that we need to be to be competitive with African projects and materials coming out of China. I think that would give us a 25-year mine life that would operate at 1 million tons a year. And it would be, I think, a very, very interesting project that, all in would produce $100 million per year potentially, when you have graphite prices at $1,500 to $2,000 per ton. on average over that 25 years. So we're looking to target that particular kind of development.
Now, you don't need to get to that size right off the bat with in the upcoming 43101, do you? I mean, you're comfortable with getting a pretty good chunk of that out of the way and then adding on to as time goes on?
Yeah, well, we're already there with the part way there with the Graphene-Battery Zone, which has 10 million tons of that 6% material indicated and inferred. So if we can add to that particular section that already exists with what's in the refractory zone, all we really need is another 15 million tons of 11%, and then we're averaging out to 9 or better than 9 or 10%. The perfect world would be double digit grades and double digit tonnage, which would give us, I think the second best deposit in North America next to Mason Graphite. And Mason's at 70 million market cap. We're at 3 million market cap. So that's, you got to know where your competitors are, and it's a competitive world, and on a comparative analysis, we compare well with some of these other projects.
So how far did this latest set of results take you down, your path and your goal? Because you've got you've got multiple 100-meter intercepts, multiple 10% plus grade. How far down the road did this shot take?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're there. That's what the bottom line is. We drilled enough. We drilled 150 holes to discover this particular, the two resources that we'll have. And I think we'll meet those targets. And that will be what we want to go to a pre-economic assessment with, because then you can put a dollar figure on the value of the project. And that's where we want to go. And that dollar figure, hopefully, will be a heck of a lot more than the 3 or 4 million market cap we're at now.
So Paul, in a perfect world, if you're there, we're just spitballing, if you're there, right, then what does this mean in terms of timeline for production and sales agreements and things like that? How does the 2020 onward look in terms of if you had your druthers and everything lined up exactly as you're hoping it will with the 43101, the PEA?
Yeah, what we're seeing, George, is that from 2020 to 2030, we're going to see a big change in the way people view electric vehicles. Right now, everyone still has range anxiety. There's certainly, the numbers are growing, people who are driving these electric vehicles, but we will need, I think, to meet the demand from electric vehicles. Right now, the demand is going up at an exponential rate, and we should see a penetration of 25% by 2030. Well, we're at 2% or less than 2% now in North America. We're going to see a big change in the next 10 years. And that's where we want to be, right at the forefront of that change, and being able to supply materials like this that are going to be in great demand are exactly what makes a company, very, very valuable. And so we're headed through a lot of dark times in the early 2010s and to 2015. And now we're hitting, I think, our stride in the perfect time, and that's where we want to really, I think, take advantage of the opportunity and introduce it to people out here in the market.
Do you think the market is really getting it yet? Because we keep hearing electric vehicles, Tesla, and what other people are doing, and are people nonchalant about it, or are they started to connect the dots that electric vehicles means, demand for graphite means, the refractory zone and Lomiko Metals, the Loutre project? And have they started to draw those connections yet, or people just think it's too far off?
Well, I think the majority of people who are early adopters have made that connection. And I'll give you a timeline. In 2009, lithium moved from $1,000 to $5,000 per ton of material. And then in 2012, what we saw was a move in graphite from about $700 to $3,000 per ton. So what we're seeing here is a bit of a lag, because once lithium is locked in, people go out there and buy the graphite to make the lithium-ion batteries. It's somewhat of an afterthought, but it's an important material to have. And I think now with reduced exports from China and an increased, I think, demand for the material because of the EVs, we're going to see a spike in the price of graphite. And when any commodity spikes, all the juniors in that space spike as well. We saw that with lithium juniors in 2016 when lithium went to the second phase of development from $5,000 to $20,000 per ton.
Right.
Well, the second phase of graphite, we might see $6,000 per ton graphite. And what that will do to our stocks is definitely bring some attention because we'll certainly see some added shareholder attention and institutional attention. Devil's
advocate, though, do you worry that if graphite gets priced too high, it prices itself out of the market? So is there, naturally speaking, you'd love to get $100,000 per ton, but you don't want it to get there because it means people are going to be looking for others. So have you guys figured out what that price point is the market can absorb, can accept without looking for alternatives, and therefore you get the highest possible return for your deposit?
Yeah, I think that anything over $10,000 per ton for graphite, people are looking for alternatives, and I think we're a long ways away from that.
Sure.
We're 1,200 or so, but remember, graphite is a material that is very, very prevalent in the world today. At those prices, what you'll see is people taking pencils and taking the pencil out of it and burning it down and creating a synthetic graphite and selling it at that level. I mean, there's always that. That's what happens with silver sometimes. People start, when the silver price gets to 50 or 100, you can melt down your silver spoons. But realistically, I think that graphite has to be very, very pure. There's a lot of energy that is in it to create synthetic graphite, and that's where the limit is. $10,000 per ton, you can burn coal or synthetic graphite and economically produce synthetic 100% pure graphite that goes into anode material. Anything under that, and we, the natural flake graphite miners, have the advantage. And I think that there's a good gap there. Where if we could see a 5 or 6% or 5 or 6 times return on the price of graphite, that means that we're going to have a similar type of return in the markets.
Last question. When do you think you'll feel most comfortable starting to reach out to potential customers, letting them know, hey, we're reaching out because we think we're going to be ready by these dates to start supplying you? I know to start supplying you will be a couple of years down the road, I think. But when do you feel comfortable when you can start reaching out to people, to potential customers, saying, hey, Lomiko's here and Loutre is going to be ready for it?
Yeah, we're very lucky in that Mason Graphite in 2016 and 17 and Nouveau Monde in 2018, 19 have been doing that, reaching out already and creating a market of knowledgeable investors in this particular field. So we're not there yet to compare with them. We need a pre-economic assessment. So I think by February 2020, we'll have that in place, and you'll see the steps we're taking to complete it along the way. And at that point, buyers will be able to turn on and examine our infrastructure, our access to ports. The fantastic part is I think we've got a definite advantage over those other two because they've already made the mistakes and done everything they had to do to get up to production, whereas we can benefit from those and shoot the gap to some extent. And that's part of the strategy that has developed simply because there's so much more going on in the markets now with electric vehicles. So being cautious, I think, has its advantages, and I think we're going to benefit from that.
Well, for everyone at home, the Lomiko team led by Paul has been cautious the whole way. I mean, you've had this project now for 15 years, Paul? And you've been...
No, it seems like that for 5 years. For 5 years, this particular project. No, we have, of course, had other projects that we didn't feel were going to suit the needs that we had. But what we've done is we basically found that Goldilocks zone of having good grades, good location, no sulfur content, and that would increase costs, and in a great jurisdiction. And I think you have to dig deep to find the holy grail, and that's the way it goes. You've got to say no to a lot of partners and a lot of other projects, and that's what exploration is all about, to find the one that is perfect. And this is what we think we have now.
Well, for some reason I thought Loutre you've had for 10 years. Was I wrong about that?
No, we had other projects. Loutre, we only bought that one in 2015. So it seems like we've been talking about it forever. But definitely we've been talking about graphite since 2012, and the electric vehicle market in 2009, we started talking about green economy, electric vehicle market. So definitely we've been on it, and you got to find your niche in that big picture that is the overall markets, and that's what we've done with Loutre, is to find something that we think is grade A and able to bring it home for our investors.
And that says a lot about you guys, because you've been persistent, you've been on the same message, you've been patient, and now you position yourself. I didn't mean to actually come out those P's, but patience, persistence, and now you're positioned. But congratulations on this latest press release. Glad to have you on Beyond the Press Release so you can talk to everyone and really let them know what it means. And clearly we're in July right now, so we're going to be talking again in August once the 4-3-101 comes out. We're going to have a lot to talk about then. So, but in the meantime, congratulations to you and your team, Paul.
Thanks very much, George. Take care, everyone.
You've been watching Paul Gill, CEO of Lomiko Metals. The company trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol LMR. For our friends in the US, OTCQB, LMRMF, and for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under DH8C. You've heard what Paul had to say. You've watched what he had to say. Now the next step is for you to do your due diligence. Get to the Agoracom hub for Lomiko, punch in their name or stock symbol. Take a look at the profile information we've set up for you there so you can neatly follow this story in a nice summarized way. Then link over to the Lomiko Metals site for even more detail. And then when you've got your questions, post in the discussion forum there. Paul and his team will answer them. And make sure you've watched the past 3 or 4 interviews we've done together, because everything Paul has said he's going to do and his team is going to do, they've done. And here we are in a great position. So now we're all looking forward to August. Thanks to everyone at home for joining us. And Paul, thanks again for being here.
Thanks, George. Take care.